are about to hear the greatest story ever told. The story is found in the most important book in the world, the Bible. You will find your place in its pages, your past and your future, because the Creator of the universe wanted us to know Him. Slowly, over a period of about 1,500 years, God selected various individuals from many places to write His message to us. Today we have what God has chosen to reveal to us in a collection of 66 books called the Bible. The Bible explains that God guided the writers so that they recorded in their own words what He wanted them to say and write. In those sacred writings, God lovingly made two major promises to ensure we could come to know Him. Today, those promises are called the Old Testament and the New Testament, or the Old and New Covenants. Do not be overwhelmed by the length of the story. Slowly, prayerfully, and openly, listen for what He is revealing about people like us and about Himself. He is pursuing us through the people and events of the Bible story, and He never spoke more clearly than when He sent His Son Jesus. Now, listen to the greatest love story ever told. Introduction to the Old Testament. The 39 books of the Old Testament story begin by telling us about the creation of our universe and of the human race. These writings continue with God selecting a people, one nation, Israel. And He chooses Israel not because the people were special, but that they would become special because they would know Him. And so He makes a covenant promise with this people for the sake of all people of all time. By following Israel's story recorded in the Old Testament, we find God's plan to bring salvation to the earth through the promised Messiah. Patiently and passionately throughout the story of the Old Testament, God offers His love and forgiveness, drawing people even outside of Israel to Himself, to be their Savior and their God. Introduction to Genesis. We would have many more questions than we do about our world and who we are if it were not for the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. The title, Genesis, means beginnings, and the opening words to this, the greatest story ever told, tell us that in the beginning, God created all things. He not only created all things, but from these ancient texts, we can listen to Him interacting with all He made. Genesis records many beginnings: the beginning of the world, of family, of sin and evil, of languages, and of the nations. Genesis begins the great salvation story of God's purpose and plan for His creation. Notice how God chooses one man named Abraham to become one chosen nation, Israel, that would be a light of salvation for all peoples. Moses was the human author of Genesis, but God directed his words. Notice how God intended the first several chapters to be a crucial summary of the origin of the world and its peoples. If one were to start from creation and then divide the whole Old Testament story in half chronologically, the midpoint would fall after about Genesis chapter 11. The rest of the story of Genesis tells about the lives of several major characters: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. It also introduces us to the way God pursues and enters into covenants or promises with His chosen people, pledging His loyal love for them, which serves to benefit all peoples.
Genesis, chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said,
Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water.
So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said,
Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear.
And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said,
Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds.
And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said,
Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth.
And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said,
Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky.
So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living and moving thing with which the water teems, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kinds.
And